Hi, folks. One of my favorite children's picture books is Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. Not only does Alexander wake up with gum in his hair, but his mother forgets to pack him dessert for lunch, and his best friend decides he's not his best friend anymore. And if that's not bad enough, Alexander's brothers don't have any cavities when they go to the dentist, but he does. And just when it can't get any worse, for supper, lima beans. As a kid, I loved having this book read to me on any day, but if I remember correctly, it was on days that I was struggling the most that my parents reached for this book at bedtime. It was a reminder that as bad as life gets, normally we survive. It was a story that made me laugh and gave me hope. Stories can do that, you know. They can give hope even during the hardest of times. Like Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, a story from the Bible tells in graphic, imaginative detail about a terrible, horrible, no good time in the history of Israel. Set in the most bleak of times, the exile emerges the story of Ezekiel in the valley of the dry bones. Greetings to everybody today. Let me say, as I stand here in the sanctuary, it's a weird experience to see in my phone a whole valley of dry pews, of empty pews. It's a challenging and hard time for us, and I think we could use a story of hope. So on to this Bible story about the prophet Ezekiel and his vision of a valley of dry bones and the promise of God to breathe life and health into these dry bones so that they might live. It feels so relevant to these strange times in which we suddenly find ourselves, when our situation feels bleak and maybe a little scary. I've heard from a few of you that you're having strange dreams yourselves. So maybe we can really hear Ezekiel's strange dream, his vision, and see if it provides hope for us. Ezekiel lived during the time of the exile, when the people of Judah, the southern kingdom, have been resettled, have been taken away, and now they're living in a different country in the middle of a valley, far away from their homes, far away from their sacred spaces, cut off from their families, cut off from life and habits and spirit-giving forces, cut off from hope. And the exile triggered an enormous crisis of faith. One night, deep in the exile, the prophet Ezekiel had this dream, a dream about the despair they were all feeling. In this dream, God set Ezekiel down in a valley full of dry bones. And God asks, "Mortal, can these bones live?" And in this dream, this vision, God then commands Ezekiel to prophesy to the bones, to coax life into them, to call them to change and to breathe and to live again as the people of God. When Ezekiel woke up from his vision, he realized that the people weren't piles of dry bones, that they were still living, but barely, sort of living, in a strange and foreign river valley. Ezekiel shared his dream, his vision, and that vision that he shared with them was helpful in restoring their hope and helping them to imagine a faithful future. I'm not going to kid you. We're not living in an easy time. You know that. Nor was it easy during the exile. We're in a new wilderness period, even wilder than we might have imagined at the beginning of Lent. And when we're in a strange wilderness, it can be easy to feel anxious and despair, especially now. And when things look bleak, that's when God starts recruiting prophets. When others are discouraged and demoralized, God uses prophets to breathe hope for the future and courage for the present moment. God can do amazing work even in scary moments, and the church will help us get through this together. May it be so. Amen.